In this video, we're going to be making a Nintendo Switch using 2D constraints. So make a new part, start a sketch, and let's make a rectangle. This rectangle is going to be 3.58 by 8.18. We want to round the corners, so let's do that using the Fillet Tool. The Fillet Tool can round corners of different sizes. The 0.125 inch will be very small, but let's make that bigger to 1. And you can either click on the two lines or on the corners themselves. Press escape to leave that. Let's make another rectangle of 3.15 by 5.6. And we want to make this rectangle centered inside of the bigger rectangle. Now you could take a while with the dimension tool, or you could use 2D constraints. So let's use the vertical constraint to make their Y values align. So we can click on this midpoint, hover over, find this midpoint. Then we could find this midpoint and make their X values align using the horizontal constraint. Now let's fillet this a little bit, the inner rectangle a little bit smaller. Let's say 0.125. And we can just click on these lines. Press finish sketch. And we want to extrude both of these rectangles to different sizes. So the way we're going to do this is first by extruding this, we can make it 0.55 inches. And to extrude the second one, we're going to have to open up this drop down and then press share sketch. And then we could extrude as many times as we want from this single sketch. So we press extrude again, and we can select on that profile and extrude at 0.56 for that little bit more. Now let's make the set of buttons on the top right. So if we start this 2D sketch, let's make a button of 0.3 diameter. We're going to want to make 4 buttons all across here, but again, using the dimension tool could take a while, and it's not as intuitive as just projecting these circles in a circle. So we make another circle, a bigger one, of 0.623 diameter. We want to make the top of this align with the center of the circle. And the way to do this is to use the dimension tool, line up these centers, and make this distance the radius. And we don't have to calculate this in our heads, we could just use this to calculate. And to align these, we could just use the horizontal to line up the X values. Next, let's put this circle where we want, so let's use the dimension tool to make this point 0.745 from here, and 0.75 from here. Next, we can finally use the circular pattern tool. And we need to use 2 selections here. The first one is the geometry, the thing that we want to project in a circle. So we want this to be the smaller circle, that'll be our button. Next, it needs to be the axes that we're projecting around. This will be the bigger circle we just made. So you can see that it's 6 circles right now that are projected around. We want to make it 4. And this is over 360 degrees. It's the full circle that it's projecting it around. You make this less to 180, and it'll just be in this half circle. Let's make it up to 360. Now that we have all our buttons, let's just quickly extrude them to 0.05, just a little bit. And once we have them extruded, we can do something else to make them rounded, because the buttons aren't usually having a hard edge like that. So we could use a 3D fillet tool. And it basically works the same exact way as the 2D fillet tool. Again, you could change the size. Let's make this, I don't know, let's use 0.02. And then you have that nice curvature. So on the buttons, you're going to need text. And the way to access the text tool is to go into a new sketch. And then you have the text tool right here. You could just do this. And this is the Y button, so let's press OK. Now it's going to be sideways. A quick way to fix this, just use the rotate tool, click on the profile, select a random center point, and then you can just lock it into place. I'm just going to drag it there for now. And then we can extrude this just a tiny bit. Usually with text you just want to extrude a tiny bit so you can see that tiny bit of profile. Let's make it like 0.01. And you can see that Y is there. On the top left side, let's start work on the joystick. So if we make a new sketch, and then a circle inside this, maybe a little bit further down, we can make 0.65 diameter. And then we're going to want to make a hole with this. So our hole can be of size 0.05, but let's make this a hole. And then inside this circle, let's make another sketch. And we're going to put another circle in here of 0.44 diameter. Again, let's extrude from here. And since this is going to be our Joy-Con, let's make it not straight up. And what I mean by that is once we extrude it to 0.2, we can change the angle of this extrude, change the taper. And that's in these advanced properties. We can make this into -20 to make it going inwards. If you make it a positive angle, it's going to go outwards. Now on top of this, again, we're going to make another sketch. And this is going to be the same diameter as the original circle. It's just going to lock in like that. Finish sketch. And we can extrude to 0.07. And then again, to make it rounded, we could use a 3D Fillet Tool. And let's use 3D Fillet Tool 0.035. And then you have that nice rounded Joy-Con. Now on the top, let's start a new sketch. We are going to make the vents on top of the switch. So let's start by making a line of 0.145. And we want this line to be vertical, and that's our second use for these vertical and horizontal constraints, is if I click on this, it just automatically makes it vertical. The next thing we're going to want to do is make a second line. So I want this line to be in line with this, same size, and the way that we're going to do this first is by making them equal. This makes them the same size, and then secondly we can use the parallel constraint to make them parallel. And I mean, we could just line up their Y values. That was the wrong one. We can line up their Y values. And then the next thing we can do is use the dimension tool to make them 0.125 apart. And the next thing we're going to want to do is make a semicircle. And the way to do this is the arc tool. And we're going to use a 3-point arc. The first point is going to be the starting point, second is going to be the ending point, and the last one is going to be how far out you want the circle to be. So it's going to click in for us there. And then let's do it again. And let's say it doesn't click in. We can use the tangent constraint. And what this is going to do when we click on this and then on the line, it's going to continue the arc perfectly into the line. So what we're going to do from here, similar to the circle, is project this geometry. But we're not going to use the circular tool, we're going to use the rectangular tool. And similarly to the circles, again, we're going to need an axis to project this across. And I could just use this line here, and then this can be our axis. So let's press the rectangular tool, select our profile, we could just select the whole thing, and then select the direction we want it to go. It's going to go in that direction. If we want to switch that, you press this button. And then we press the amount that we want to have. We want to have 9 vents. And then let's also say that we want them to be, because you see how far apart they are, we want them to be let's say 0.165 apart. That's a good distance. And then we want it to be in the middle again. So let's use the horizontal to make this centered. We could just find this midpoint, and the vertical to get the center of this, and the center of this. Press finish sketch, and then extrude, and we could just extrude all of these into holes. Let's say that's a good amount. So now that we have this, it's kind of gray, it's kind of boring. The way to change this, first of all, let's hide the visibility of this. The way to change this is to use appearances. And what that means is when you select this, there's a drop down over here, and there's a bunch of different colors, a bunch of different textures. So if I press R, it's going to bring me to the section of R's. I can make this switch red. And now we have the entire switch that's red. I can make the screen a different color. I can make this, I can make this glossy black. Let's click on G, and that's glossy black. So that's pretty much how you change appearances, and you could use that for a bunch of different things. Thank you for watching.